Today, I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about painting what is believed to be one of the most difficult colors to paint in the world, yellow. And also explain why we've never done Imperial Fist tutorials on the Squidmar channel, as I go from not a single yellow marine to a full-fledged Imperial Fists army, while also teaching you guys how to do this quicker than ever before. Because I kinda don't think painting yellow is all that hard. I freaking had it! Utter garbage! The coverage of yellow is shit! You guys know the drill by now. About a year ago, I dipped my toes in what is the vast pit of Warhammer 40k. So today, in order to get a bit of a head start in my ambitious project to having one painted army of each of the Loyalist Space Marine chapters, I thought I'd try to paint this Space Marine Combat Patrol as fast as I humanly can to prove all of you guys wrong. Because for some weird reason, every time we talk about the difficulty of painting certain colors, you all seem to go completely bananas and yell at us that painting yellow is the most difficult thing you can ever do. I don't get it! It's not that freaking hard, guys! With the colors in the Squidmar paint sets and the techniques shown in this video, all of that is in the past. But with that said, I have a lot of minis to paint, so let's just start the first step. And in this step, some of you guys might think that when you're painting a yellow armor, you have to prime your miniatures white. However, if you watch this video, you know that we love to prime our miniatures black. Once the primer is all dry, next up would be to bring out the airbrush and some old trusted Squidmar Essential paint set paints. Beginning with a 40-60 mix of dark skin tone and parasite brown, I make sure to cover the entire mini. And hear me out here, guys. One of the reasons we've never done Imperial Fist tutorials on the channel before is because whenever we use an airbrush in a video, there's always like 100 people complaining that we're using a tool that they don't have. But I freaking had it! If you want your army to look the best that it can, you will have to use the best tools for the freaking job. If you're a carpenter, you don't go in and start sawing your entire house just to create the doorway. No, you build it like that, I guess. I don't know. Using a freaking brush to paint your yellow miniatures will mean that you have to paint like 9 million layers, because the coverage of yellow is shit, especially through the freaking paintbrush, which will lead to having like striations of utter garbage. Steve, get an airbrush! Once all the minis have a nice and even base coat of this mixture, I can add some white to the airbrush and start applying a zenithal highlight to the miniatures. And in this step, it's really important to dilute your paint properly to avoid any unnecessary speckles or uneven application of the white paint. And having this white zenithal highlight is really vital in making our next layer of yellow really vibrant and really cool. Because if we were to spray the yellow directly over the brown, it would look quite desaturated and lack that extra oomph. Now, to finally sell this effect of it actually being yellow, it's time to paint some yellow. Here we can go about it in two different ways. You can either pick the sun yellow if you want some warmer tones in your armor, but today I will use moon yellow to get a slightly cooler tone in the final highlights of the armor. And this also will make sure that the yellow complements the bases and the rest of the army really well. So, by diluting this moon yellow into some sort of glaze consistency and then shooting it through the airbrush, making sure to cover all the white areas and also letting the paint leak over to the darker areas to blend it out. Something you might have noticed while I'm painting these is that I left the helmets not connected to the minis. Because when I painted my Blood Angels, I realized that I would save a lot of time painting a few of the parts separately. I also came across the fact that the librarian included in the combat patrol box is just utter complete garbage and completely unplayable. So I thought I would replace it with a repulsor.
You're a dirty power gamer.
I have become what I swore to destroy. And of course, all of these steps will apply to the tank as well. And if I say that I'll now bring out the best tool ever created, I'm of course talking about the sponge. You guys have heard us talk about it a million times before, praising it as it's the best and cheapest tool in your entire arsenal, because it is. So just by simply moisturizing the sponge in some water, then in some ice yellow, I can start dabbling this over the mini to build up some textures. And also some highlights. But the best thing to keep in mind in this entire step is the speed. Just look how fast it's going! It's almost unfair. And as you see, with these simple techniques, it's not even that hard to paint yellow. So while I continue sponging all the minis, let me talk about this week's sponsor, Into the AM. Look guys, I'm even wearing a new shirt right now. As you know, or unless you've been living under a rock, you know that me and Emil absolutely love the shirts from Into the AM. And despite Emil being a tall the shirts fit him really awesome. And the last few weeks I've really been cozy snuggling in my flannel shirts, wearing of course the sleek graphic designs underneath. I just freaking love this autumn collection they created this year. Into the AM might be best known for their graphic t-shirts that are quite frankly some of the best on the entire internet. We've just made a collaborative design with this massive squid that can only be found through Into the AM. If you follow the link in the video description, you guys can look even better than I do wearing these beautiful shirts, and on top of that you get 10% off your entire purchase. So there's no reason, go check it out, look stellar, dress nicely, be comfortable, and paint some yellow marines. Let's get back to the video. In this stippling step, it's very likely, like 100% likely, that we accidentally add too much of the ice yellow on some parts. But we need to trust the process. So rather than panic, we'll use this in our advantage in two different ways. The first and maybe the easiest one is just reintroducing some of that moon yellow, covering up a little bit of that ice yellow. The second thing we do is bring out the dark rust and add this in the center of some of these ice yellow spots. This will create the best looking battle damage you can ever imagine. And if you even want more battle damage, bring out the sponge once again and stipple this selectively in some of the areas to create more battle damage. To really sell this army as even cooler than it already is, I'll bring out some skin ink and shoot it through the airbrush in all of the shadows. This will really punch the vibrancy in the shadows and also the contrast throughout the meaning. To really finalize the yellow armor, we now, by using the brush, apply a little bit of ice yellow highlight to certain areas that we really want to pop. We mainly do this around the facial area, maybe the top of the shoulder pad, maybe around the knee pad that's standing out a bit more. And if you're a complete mad lad like Emil, you can even go in with some ivory. all the yellow armor is now finally done, and they look quite alright in my opinion. But best of all, I've only spent about 4 or 5 hours painting this entire yellow chunk of mass, including this freaking repulsor tank. But we can't just leave the army like this, so it's time to move on. I'm thinking I'll start by painting all of the black details on the miniatures. This is a great step to create some really nice contrast to the yellow armor, and also a great way to make sure that each part feels separated and not just blend together. And to highlight these black parts, I simply bring out some ice yellow and mix it into the black paint and go to town. Now I'd love to move on to the thing that I enjoy most in this entire hobby, painting the faces. And like I said before, to make everything as easy as possible, we kept these on the side in sub-assembly to really make it as easy as humanly possible. I then begin by covering the faces with burnt red. Then using about a 50-50 mix of burnt red and sunny skin tone, I add this highlights to all the raised areas in the entire face. I then add more and more skin tone to the mix, to every highlight I add to go up in brightness. And if you're feeling crazy, you might even want to add some light flesh tone as super fine highlights to really punch the contrast. Now to really make things pop, I glaze some scarlet blood around the cheekbones and nose. Then to get the beard line, I glaze some turquoise over the entire chin and also the upper lip. This might sound a bit strange, but trust me, this is gonna take your minis to the next level. And for the regular helmets, we'll keep it even more simple. Starting off from the black primer, then we add some scarlet blood in the airbrush and add this as a zenithal highlight over the entire helmet. Then moving in with some hot orange as a final highlight, using a stippling motion with the brush. For the eyes, I paint them using ice yellow. I then glaze over them using fluorescent green. Just painting the black details and the faces took me about twice the amount of time as painting the yellow armor. And right now we're up to about 12 hours for this entire box, including a repulsor tank. So if I just manage to push through and finish all these remaining details, that would mean that I have finished this entire task force in just 2 work days. How freaking awesome isn't that? For this, I think we need an epic montage and some 80s music. Now we only have some bases left for these miniatures, and quite frankly, I haven't decided what theme I want for the army. And whenever I find myself in this situation, what I like to do is just paint the bases using regular acrylic colors. This is a great way to find out if your idea is good or not, and also really good if you're in a time crunch. Here I just paint the base using dark rust. Then while the dark rust is still wet, using the same mixture of parasite brown and dark flesh tone, I spray it in the center using the airbrush. Then bringing out once again my favorite tool, the sponge, I use the same mixture with a bit more parasite brown and stipple this in the center of the base. Simple bases, but it's really good enough and helps me get a feel for how the army will look. Then, if you're feeling crazy, just smack on some pigments on the bottom half of the legs, and that means we're now ready for a grand reveal! Considering I did this in about 16 hours, I really feel like it's safe to say that painting yellow has never been easier. And most of these techniques don't require any insane skill. It's airbrushing from above, below, and stippling with a sponge for 95% of the result. And best of all, I didn't need any streaking grime that could ruin everything horribly.
Including your legs.
Yes. Thank you a lot into the AM for sponsoring this video. If you want to check them out, go down to the video description, head over to the link, get some nice apparel. And also a massive thanks to our amazing patrons. You guys make sure that we can do this full time, especially these top donors. You guys are the best. With that said, have a great day. Bye bye.